Mr. Justice Jackson, with whom Mr. Justice Douglas joins dissent in the Constitution and its 12th Amendment, allow each state in its own way to name electors with such personal qualifications apart from stated disqualifications as the state prescribes, their number, the time that they shall be named, the manner in which the state must certify their ascertainment, the determination of any contest, are prescribed by federal law, U.S. Constitution, Article 2, Section 1. When chosen, they perform a federal function of balloting for president and vice president, federal law prescribing the time of meeting, the manner of certifying all the laws given by them, and in detail how such certificates shall be transmitted and counted, U.S. Constitution, Amendment 12. This is Robert H. Jackson, Justice Jackson, nominated by FDR, served as an Associate Justice in the Supreme Court in 1941 and 1954, correctly ruled on Brown v. Board of Education. He was also the chief prosecutor of Nazis during the Nuremberg trials. So this is Justice Robert H. Jackson, his dissent to the Supreme Court case, the 1952 Ray v. Blair Supreme Court case on the Electoral College. But federal statutes undertakes no control of their votes beyond providing the elector shall vote for president and vice president, respectively, in the manner directed by the Constitution. And the Constitution requires only that they vote by ballot for president and vice president, one of whom at least shall not be an inhabitant of the same state with themselves, U.S. Constitution, Amendment 12. No one faithful to our history can deny that the plan originally contemplated what is implicit in its text, that electors would be free agents to exercise an independent and nonpartisan judgment as to the men best qualified for the nation's highest offices. Certainly, under that plan, no state law could control the elector in performance of his federal duty any more than it could a United States senator who also is chosen by and represents the state. 30. This arrangement miscarried. Electors, although often personally eminent, independent, and respectable, officially became voluntary party lackeys and intellectual non-entities to whose memory we might justly paraphrase a tuneful satire. 31. They always voted at their party's call and never thought of thinking for themselves at all. 32. As an institution, the Electoral College suffered atrophy most indistinguishable from rigor mortis. 33. However, in 1948, Alabama's Democratic Party electors refused to vote for the nominee of the Democratic National Convention. To put an end to such party unreliability, the party organization exercising state-delegated authority closed the official primary to any candidate for elector unless he would pledge himself under oath to support any candidate named by the Democratic National Convention. It is conceded that under long prevailing conditions, this effectively forecloses any chance of the state being represented by the unpledged elector. In effect, before one can become an elector for Alabama, its law requires that he must pawn his ballot to a candidate not yet named by a convention not yet held, of delegates not yet chosen. Even if the nominee repudiates the platform adopted by the same convention, as Democratic nominees have twice done in my lifetime, 1904, 1928, the elector is bound to vote for him. It will be seen that the state has sought to achieve control of the elector's ballots by the balloting, but the balloting cannot be constitutionally subjected to any such control because it was intended to be free, an act performed after all functions of the electoral process left to the states had been completed. The Alabama Supreme Court held that such a requirement violates the federal Constitution, and I agree. It may be admitted that this law does no more than to make a legal obligation of what has been a voluntary general practice. If custom were sufficient authority for amendment of the Constitution by court decree, the decision in this matter would be warranted. Usage may sometimes impart changed content to constitutional generalities such as due process of law, equal protection, or commerce among the states, but I do not think powers or discretions granted to federal officials by the federal Constitution can be forfeited by the court for disuse. A political practice which has its origin in custom must rely upon custom for its sanctions. You're not even on the Constitution, you're just relying on custom. That was 34. 35, the demise of the whole electoral system would not impress me as a disaster. At its best, it is a mystifying and distorting factor in presidential elections, which may resolve a popular defeat into an electoral victory. At its worst, it is open to local corruption and manipulation, one so flagrant as to threaten the stability of the country. To abolish it and substitute direct election of the president so that every vote wherever cast would have equal weight in calculating the result would seem to me a gain for simplicity and integrity of our governmental processes. 36. But the court's decision does not even move in that direction. What it is doing is to entrench the worst features of the system in constitutional law and to elevate the perversion of the forefathers' plan into a constitutional principle. This judicial overturn of the theory that has come down to us cannot plead the excuse that it is a practical remedy for the evils or weaknesses of the system. 37. The court is sanctioning a new instrument of power in the hands of any faction that can get control of the Democratic National Convention to make it sure of Alabama's electoral vote. When the party is in power, this will likely be the administration faction, and when not in power, no one knows what group it will be. This device of pre-pledged and oath-bound electors imposes upon the party within the state an oath-bound regularity and loyalty to the controlling element in the national party. It centralizes party control, and instead of securing for the locality a share in the central management, it secures the central management and dominance of the local vote in the Electoral College. If we desire free elections, we should not add to the leverage over local party representatives always possessed by those who enjoy the prestige and dispense the patronage of a national administration. 38. The view of many that it is the progressive or liberal element of the party that will presently advantage from this device does not prove that the device itself has any proper place in a truly liberal or progressive scheme of government. Who will come to possess this weapon and to whose advantage will it prove in the long run, I am not foresighted enough to predict, but party control entrenched by disenfranchisement and exclusion of non-conforming party members is a means which, to my mind, cannot be justified by any end. In the interest of free government, we should foster the power and the will to be independent, even on the part of those we may think to be independently wrong. 39. Candidates for elector, like those for senator, of course, may announce to their constituents their policies and preferences and assume a moral duty to carry them out if they are chosen. Competition in the primary between those of different views would forward the representative principle, but this plan affects a complete suppression of competition between different views within the party. All who are not ready to follow blindly anyone chosen by the National Convention are excluded from the primary, and that, in practice, means also from the election. 40. It is not for me as a judge to pass upon the wisdom or righteousness of the political revolt this measure was designed to suppress. For me, it is enough that, be it ever so benevolent and virtuous, the end cannot justify these means. 41. I would affirm the decision of the Supreme Court of Alabama. The case was argued March 31st, 1952. The court announced its decision April 3rd, 1952. The majority and the dissenting opinions were issued April 15th, 1952. So Ray v. Blair, right? Ray v. Blair was about this case of the Alabama. They were making him pledge, and they eventually said it was okay for Alabama to say that the, political party, the Democrats, could force their electors to pledge for a candidate, but they couldn't shackle them to the vote. They could not force them to vote. So, yeah, pledge, promise, whatever the fuck it is you want to fucking say, but you can't So now this, he dissented just because he's saying that it's, that's one step in the wrong direction. It's clearly the Electoral College was designed to overthrow a demagogue, to overthrow, it's the fail-safe switch. When you've elected a piece of shit demagogue, then you can, go ahead and you turn the key, both of the 538, they got to turn it, so it's got to be precise, it's got to be perfect. But the point of the Electoral College is to overthrow a demagogue. And so the dissent of, this Robert H. Jackson's dissent in 1952, Ray v. Blair, is, instructive. The current Supreme Court could listen to it also. Unfortunately, this is just what I feel about the, Electoral College, so it could help the Democrat, it could help the Republican, depending on, where we're at. Right now, this would probably help the Republican, right? That we have an Electoral College and they're going to meet December 14th, and they might not all vote for Joe or Donald, even though their state had voted that way. So there's a huge degree of uncertainty. The original intent of the Constitution says that they can, change their vote. Historically, they don't. And, I would think that the Supreme Court, the states, it probably would be low, but that's, that's a guess. You could have a bunch of people that deflect, and you could have, nobody who deflects. Yeah, so Ray v. Blair, 1952, the Constitution of State Pledge Laws confirmed. In Ray v. Blair, by a 5-2 vote, the court ruled states have the right to require electors to pledge to vote for the candidate whom their party supports and the right to remove potential electors who refuse to pledge prior to the election. The court also wrote, however, even if such promises of candidates for the Electoral College are legally unenforceable because they violate an unassumed constitutional freedom of the elector under the Constitution, or Article 2, Section 1, to vote as he may choose in the Electoral College, it would not follow that the requirement of a pledge in the primary is unconstitutional. Crazy decision, right? So you can pledge, the Democrats and the Republicans can force you to pledge before and after the election. Oh, yeah, no, I'm going to vote for the Democrat. I swear I'll vote for the Republican. I swear. I will vote for that. I swear. But they cannot require you to vote for the person. So the vote is free. And today's Supreme Court case with the Chiafalo decision, v. Washington and Colorado Department of State v. Baca, Chiafalo v. Washington, right? So the Chiafalo case, the Chiafalo decision, which was this year, July 2020, the Chiafalo decision says that the states can, shackle the person and force them to vote for who the state had voted for. So the custom has won. Tradition and custom, we're not even, we need an originalist. Amy Barrett, are you listening to any of this? We need an originalist. We need a textualist, originalist, a strict constructionalist on the Electoral College, because nobody knows what the fuck is going on. And the Supreme Court ruled incorrectly on this case. It's clear as day to Robert H. Jackson, Supreme Court Justice Robert A. Jackson, superb. 13, 14 years. FDR nominated him. He prosecuted Nazis right in Nuremberg. He went ahead and segregated at the end of his life. 1954 is the last year that he was a justice. So for 13, 14 years, he lived in a segregated America. After 14 years, they said, hey, you've been wrong. You got to unsegregate this shit. He thought about it, changed his mind. Boom. Brown v. Board of Education changes America. Now we got to integrate. Now we got to be brothers and sisters. So, what? Well, that's big. That's a big deal because Robert H. Jackson would not recognize today's Supreme Court, and I don't even know how today's Supreme Court read the Constitution, so I think it was just poorly argued. Who the fuck were the lawyers to this goddamn case? Chiafalo. So there you go. If you're like, hey man, what was Robert H. Jackson's dissent and Ray v. Blair in that 1952 Supreme Court case, Ray v. Blair? Now you know. Now you know.